Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of CME in Conversation. Today, I'm going to be chatting to the lovely Beth Brimmicombe, who is a teacher and one of our very earliest cohort of CME learners here at Music Education Solutions. And hopefully, we're going to be having a bit of a chat about some of the themes from Unit 3 of the CME, which is all about reflective practice, professional development, and career progression. But if you could just start, Beth, by just giving us a little bit of a background to you, where you work, what you do, that kind of thing, so people can kind of get a flavour for Beth.
Okay, hi. So I currently have two jobs. I work in a small school teaching music on a self-employed basis 1 day a week. And I also work for a music hub where I go into primary schools and deliver vocal projects to classes over the course of a term.
Brilliant.
Previously to that, I was in a primary school for about 10 years, teaching music and also being music lead. And it was there that I completed the CME.
Oh, thanks for mentioning that, because that was where I was going to start off actually. Because obviously you've had, as you've just outlined, a bit of a kind of change in circumstance since you did the CME. And as you'll know, if you remember back that far, in Unit 3, there's a little bit about sort of career planning, and learners are asked to look at the opportunities in their local area for career progression should they decide that they want to do something different from what they're currently doing. And I guess, you have had this kind of shift, and I wondered, how that was for you, what prompted it, if you thought, then that you would be where you are now, all that kind of stuff. How did that all kind of pan out for you?
I don't think I did think at all that I would go on into other teaching jobs in music at the time of doing the CME. I hadn't planned to sort of move on as such because I was happy where I was, and I did continue there for another sort of 3 or 4 years. But things changed, and I wanted to sort of look elsewhere and move forwards. And I don't know that I thought that that would be possible before. And actually having the CME gave me confidence to think I could do other jobs within music, actually other teaching jobs. The confidence it gave me while I was still doing the job in my original place. I continued to learn after I'd completed it as well. And yes, I think it did make me believe that those other places and those other options were an option for me. And so I didn't quite know what I was going to do. I was given the opportunity to go and work in a different school, say a smaller school for a day a week, teaching music and on a self-employed basis, which is the direction I thought I would go in. But then actually, a couple of jobs came up in the music hub, which I happened to see. Decided to apply, and still surprised myself really by getting the jobs and then or getting the job and then working in the music hub as well, which again several years ago I didn't really think before the CME that would be an option for me. So yes, it definitely gave me a huge level of confidence actually having the CME behind me, and everything that I had learned through it, not just having the piece of paper, actually everything that I had learned and in the way that I developed subsequently as well.
Oh, that's really great to hear. I wonder if do you know, you might not know, of course, but in the recruitment process from the hub, do you know whether they looked at things like qualifications and whether they were, impressed that you had the CME or
To be honest, I'm not sure. It was certainly listed on there. I believe there are others that also have it, that qualification. So I would think that perhaps it did play a part in certainly giving a level of the study that I had done towards it. So yes, I'm not sure exactly.
I think nobody really is sure, and it would be interesting to, somebody, maybe me, I don't know, will need to go and actually sort of go round the hubs and go, is this something that you're
Yes.
actively looking for? The
Yeah.
feeling I get is that it is something that people know what it is, and when they see that you've got it, they understand what it is.
Yes.
Um,
Hopefully,
so
and the experience and alongside that as well. That yes, I'm sure it was in there, with the other things as well. Yeah.
and what other sort of professional development have you gone on to do since the CME?
Um, I do as much as I can. Certainly music education solutions. I've had some fantastic courses. We did some around composing. There was a course I came to which was fantastic around using iPads. So yes, I did those quite early on and around about the time of doing the CME. Also, again, provided by yourself, some of the singing symposiums and what they were called prior to that. So discussions with other people doing the job, having that opportunity to speak to other people and meet other people in music. I've done those. I've done some Kadai training as well. So I've sort of added that to what I use in the classroom. A lot of that was online during the pandemic, but so I've gone on to do some of that. But just really, I just try and keep my eyes open for what's around, and any courses that I feel a relevance, that I have any gaps that I could do with filling, any opportunities to be around people who have been doing this a long time, who are well respected, any chance to sort of spend time with them, like the event that you put on in November just gone in Snape, and having access to experts in the field and highly experienced people. I do that as much as I can. Working in the Music Hub, we do have regular training and access to professionals in different fields. So just try and attend everything I can. I do see it as an ongoing thing that will never stop. I'm always wanting to learn more and listen to more people, and even down to the basics of learn more warm-ups and other places I can get resources and all those things that you learn along the way. So yeah, I just keep my eyes open really, and see what's out there.
I think that's a really kind of healthy attitude, isn't it? Because it's called continuing professional development for a reason, isn't it? Because it needs to continue. And
Yes.
what I really liked about your answer there was you sort of gave us a range of different things. So it's everything from kind of conversations with colleagues through to going to courses, doing things online. And again, you might remember back, if you remember back far enough, when you did the CME, there's a little bit of a section on Unit 3 about how people choose professional development options and how they overcome the barriers to them. And I
Mm,
think that's something that sometimes our learners find a bit tricky, because you do automatically think, go on a course or attend some training, and sometimes you have to think a bit creatively, like, okay, if that course isn't running in my local area, or if it's too expensive, what is it that I can do to upskill myself in that area, for free, or in a more convenient location, or a better time.
yeah.
um and it's a process, isn't it, that you have to go through, really.
I think
um
since I did it, there's certainly more online nowadays.
mm,
Than there was. So yes, of course, it is great to do things in person and actually have conversations with people and meet people. But I think there are now options out there. And if you weren't able to be at something, it's often recorded. You can catch up on it. So I think, yes, it's looking out for all of those options. Some of the Kadai stuff I did in the evenings. As well as also that we had some through the Music Hub as well, but mostly I put myself, to start with, before I started working for them, I did put myself through some of that, and that was available often evenings or weekends. So but yeah, so one good thing to come out of the last few years is the availability, I think, of options online. if it isn't possible, as it sometimes isn't, obviously, because of time, money, to actually get to an event. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So it's kind of the one benefit of the pandemic, isn't it, really, that everyone has suddenly learned how
Yeah.
to use this technology for their advantage. And I mean, if you remember how it sort of started in 2020, people go, well, this isn't going to work for music. And now, we're on Zoom now. They have a function for original sound for musicians. It's come on such a lot that
Yeah.
there is that you can do remotely. But there's I think there's no real substitute, I think, for when you want to do something practical musical, being in a room with lots of other people doing it at the
No,
same
there
time.
wasn't.
Yeah,
No,
but
definitely not. There's nothing quite like it, especially if you do get the opportunity to sing with everyone and just make music together. And yeah, you can't beat that. But the online stuff is there in addition to, or if there are no other options at that particular time to go to somewhere, then at least we do have a little bit more choice, I think, nowadays. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So one of the other themes from Unit 3 is around reflective practice, and that, of course, in itself is a form of professional development. And again, I know it's a long time asking you to reflect very far back now. It's a long time since you did the CME. But do you remember what that was like? Were you already a reflective practitioner before you did the CME, or was this something new? And is it something that's continued now in your new role, this kind of element of reflecting and refining your practice?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I'm a reflective person anyway. So I'm always looking at ways, thinking about how things went and what to do differently. I think part of that is being a musician anyway, because that's what we do, isn't it? We do reflect on what we've done. And I think I've always been reflective. What the CME did was I actually wrote it down. So it went out of my head onto paper as soon as I'd finished a lesson. And actually, I've continued that. And I still do that to this day, because I found it so incredibly useful. And the reflections will be everything from literally what I've covered that day, especially when you've got more than one class on a similar similar plans that you're working with. So I will actually just do what we've covered, what went well and what didn't, what might need more work, but also what happened in the lesson, what did go well, what anything that I might need to change or rethink about how I approach something, even down to children didn't settle straight away when they came into the lesson, so next week I'm going to go meet them, and we'll bring them in, and how can we start the lesson in a different way, and what are there any particular children who might need a bit of extra support? Do I need to speak to a class teacher to see if there's anything more I can be doing to help a child, or to get a little bit more information about that? So all of that will go in a reflection, and I can type quite quickly, but I try and get that down definitely the same day as the lesson. If I get 2 minutes afterwards, then I'll type it down quickly. If not, I'll make sure I've done that by the end of the day. And that's just so that I'm getting my immediate thoughts down on what might need to be different, what went well, what needs particular thing that needs working on. And then I've got that to look at before the following week. So when I'm preparing for the following week, I can read through. I've remembered what it is that I'm going to do. I've already said I'm going to go meet this class, and I know where I am, and I know where I'm picking up from. So we're not talking an essay most of the time, and sometimes it can be in note form, but I have continued that. And actually, I did look back before this evening on, and that's one of the modules I looked at. I found my work, and looked at some of the reflections. I thought, yeah, I can see really how there's some similarities to back then, but how I've also developed that sort of practice and that discipline, I think. And I wouldn't want to be without that now. I find it incredibly useful to just, I think, reflection. What can I do? what can I do better? What can I change? What needs to change? What conversations do I need to have for the children and for their learning and their progress and their whole experience?
And that's a really nice way of sort of summarising what it is we hope the CME learners get out of learning to do this practice. I think sometimes they feel like the reflection is something that they do for the CME, but actually
Mhm.
it's the most important bit to learn. I'm not going to say you could forget everything else in the CME. Let's not go that far, but you know, sometimes there is a sense, sometimes with our learners, that they feel like they're box ticking when they're writing those reflective statements. But actually, that is the key to developing and continuing to develop right the way across your career, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think to start with, you think, oh, how am I going to have time to write everything down, after every lesson? And so getting into that sort of those habits to start with can feel a bit overwhelming to put it down on paper. But I think it is one of the things that's had the most impact long term on me. One of the elements of it that, I've really developed, and I see the value in it every week. And every week I think, oh, I'm so glad I wrote that down as well. Because when you are teaching 16 classes a week, anything from, early years up to year 6, then most of us do, or whatever, age groups we do, it is useful anyway to look back on that, but just to feel that you've just picking up where you've left off. And sometimes, it's just incredibly useful. It's and I wouldn't want to not do that now.
So you've identified reflective practice as one of the kind of key things that you've brought from the CME. Is there anything else that stands out to you from the CME? And apologies because I did not prime you for this question, but we're just going in that direction now.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you particularly remember as being useful from doing the CME, or anything that you would encourage our learners to like really take their time over sort of getting to understand?
I think probably around the inclusive practice and behavior, and really getting underneath what that means to what I'm doing in the classroom, and how, and different ways of bringing children in, thinking about their own experiences of music, and how that can tie in with what we're doing in the classroom, as a way of bringing them into what they're doing, sometimes through their own paths, not just saying this is what we're doing here. It's like, well, let's look at your experiences and let's see how we can tie those together to bring you in also to what we're doing. So that had a massive impact. What success looks like for different children. So it's been really sort of having your eyes open all the time to, a child for whom success might be in actually just being able to stay in the room. And what I can do to encourage that, or to help that, or to change the environment so that that's possible. Whether that could be around noise, it could be around making sure there's ear defenders, or making sure there's a quieter space for them to work in with group work, or bringing their own instrument in, or just as someone who is struggling for their own reasons, to join in, how can I make them feel that whatever they are able to do is fantastic and welcomed and encouraged, and that might look completely different to what the person next to them is doing, but that success looks so different, and how to really encourage that, and ensure that they know that whatever they are bringing to it, and is good. It's bringing them in and allowing them to find their way of doing things. As I say, that could mean staying in the room for the lesson. It could mean we've got a group of children singing, and they manage to come and stand on the end. They might not be able to join in straight away, but that they are on their own path to be able to, participate, and really being aware of how that can look different for different children. and ways in which, you know, we can do that, how to think about that more broadly. I remember having a child who played guitar, but wasn't really sort of joining in the group work we were doing. We were doing some composition, so I suggested, why doesn't he bring his guitar in? Well, he brought his guitar in, and he was in there, having a fantastic time. So, you know, I sort of adapted the resources so he could use his guitar, and he was in, and that was during doing that unit in the CME that I made that adaptation. So it's just, I think, and it's always having your eyes open for all the children, and thinking about what, you know, what we can do, maybe conversations with the class teachers. You know, what can we do to support? Is there anything that can be changed or adapted, so that all the children can join in their own way and find a way of being successful for them, whatever that might look like. And I think, yeah, that unit really did have a big impact. And again, I think about it often. And I'd like to think that that's part of what I do, and when I'm in a class.
So we had a little bit of a technical hiccup there. So we had to do a little bit of a mini stop and start again. But what you were just saying before we had that little glitchy interruption, I think that in itself was a really good example of being a reflective practitioner, because you could have just read that unit and done the work on that unit and then not actually kind of synthesize that into your practice. But everything that you described is, you know, how you've thought about the children, and you've thought about the information that you've learned, and you've kind of put those two things together to make all the learning better, which is great. It's really lovely to hear. And I'm sure you were a great teacher before the CME, but I'd like to think that the CME has made you an even greater teacher.
It did have a massive impact on my teaching, for sure. Yes, and probably in ways I wouldn't have expected. There were parts of it that were really impactful, actually. And it sometimes, I think, can feel quite overwhelming when you're going through it, thinking, how do I do this? How do I make this part of my everyday and what I'm doing? But I think, bit by bit, you just take those things that you've done, and just gradually make them a part, you know, of what you're doing, and just, I think reflective practice is probably the thing that's, you know, and that's during the lesson, and noticing and thinking, okay, what can I do? What might need to be different? Or actually, that's gone really well. Let's, you know, and afterwards as well, that chance to reflect afterwards. And I say it, you know, it doesn't always take long, because actually, if you're in a state of reflection all the time, then it doesn't take too long to just quickly get down what you've done at the end. I say it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a 15-minute per lesson, you know, as it probably is while you're going through the process of the CME, while you get used to it. But you know, even just some bullet points. It was very impactful, and it is possible. And even when it might feel a bit overwhelming, to think, how am I going to make this part of what I do every day? Yes, I'm so glad I did it. Yeah.
Oh, what a lovely note to end on. Some really nice advice and a good kind of, you know, encouragement to people who might be thinking about it. If you're watching this and you are thinking, oh, well, that sounds interesting, underneath the video, you'll find a link to the webpage all about the CME. And also underneath the video, you can click on subscribe, and then you'll be able to see all of our videos. We're going to do one a month for the CME, and there's also lots of other stuff on our YouTube channel from Music Education Solutions. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, Beth. And we will see you next month.